In this video, we're diving into the Git Clone command. This command is used for creating local copies of remote repositories. Let's understand what Git Clone actually does. Git Clone creates a copy of a remote Git repository on your local machine. It downloads all the files, branches, and commit history from the remote repository. It also establishes a connection to the original repository, so you can synchronize changes later. Git Clone sets up remote tracking automatically, so your local branch knows where its remote counterpart is. The basic syntax is Git Clone followed by the repository uniform resource locator. This creates a directory with the same name as the repository, initializes a .git directory inside it, pulls all repository data, and checks out the latest version as the working copy. Here's a basic example of cloning a GitHub repository. You can use Git Clone Command followed by the repository's uniform resource locator. Here is an example. Git clone, then the URL https://github.com/username/repository.git. After running the command, you'll see the output like cloning into repository, enumerating objects, counting objects, compressing objects, receiving objects, and resolving deltas. Git Clone comes with several useful options. First, to specify a directory name, you can use Git Clone followed by the repository URL, and then the desired directory name. For example, Git Clone then the repository URL then my project. This clones the repository into a directory named my project, instead of using the repository name. Second, to clone a specific branch, use Git Clone with the B option followed by the branch name and the repository URL. For example, Git Clone B develop, then the repository URL. This clones only the specified branch instead of all branches. Third, to create a shallow clone with only the latest commit history, reducing download size and time, use Git Clone with the depth option set to 1, followed by the repository URL. For example, Git Clone depth equals 1, then the repository URL. Fourth, to suppress progress reporting and only show error messages, use the quiet option followed by the repository URL. For example, Git Clone quiet, then the repository URL. There are different protocols available for cloning a Git repository. The first protocol is HTTPS. The example is Git Clone https://github.com/user/repo.git. HTTPS is the most common and easiest to use. It works through firewalls and proxies, but it requires a username and password for pushing changes. The second protocol is SSH. The example is Git Clone Git at github.com, user/repo.git. SSH is secure and efficient. It requires SSH key setup, but no password is needed for each operation. The third protocol is Git Protocol. The example is Git Clone Git //github.com/user/repo.git. Git Protocol is the fastest transfer protocol, but it lacks authentication and is read-only. It is less common and may be blocked by firewalls. The fourth option is Local Path. The example is Git Clone /path/to/local/repo. This clones from a local repository on your file system and is useful for creating copies of local projects. Let's explore some advanced Git clone techniques. To clone a repository along with its submodules, use the recurse submodules option followed by the repository uniform resource locator. For example, Git Clone recurse submodules, then the repository URL. This will initialize and update each submodule in the clone. To create a bare clone, which is typically used for servers or as a remote backup, use the bare option followed by the repository uniform resource locator. For example, Git Clone bare, then the repository URL. Bare repositories are useful when you need a central repository that multiple people can push to. To create an exact mirror of the source repository, including all references and settings, use the mirror option followed by the repository uniform resource locator. For example, git clone, mirror, then the repository URL. Finally, to clone with specific Git configuration options set for the new repository, use the C option followed by the configuration setting and the repository uniform resource locator. For example, git clone ccore.autocrolf equals input, then the repository URL. Use the C option to set temporary config values during clone without affecting global settings. Here are some best practices to keep in mind when using Git Clone. First, always verify the repository uniform resource locator before cloning to ensure you're getting the correct project. Second, choose the right protocol, using HTTPS for simplicity and SSH for security and frequent contributions. Third, consider shallow clones using depth equals 1 for large repositories when you only need the latest version. Fourth, don't forget submodules. Use recurse submodules when working with repositories that contain submodules. Mastering Git Clone is essential for effective collaboration in software development. It's the first step in contributing to existing projects and the foundation for distributed version control. If you like this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Visit codelucky.com for more such useful content.